My story.
My story.
My story is a place of hope and healing for all people, men, women, veterans, young adults, teenagers, and even children. Everyone, regardless of their social status or sexual orientation. It is a place of motivation and inspiration.
My story will talk about real life situations and real life stories because no one is immune to stress, depression, anxiety, and other mental health problems. And our stories resonate. Hello, and welcome to my story. My name is Grace Ngere, and I'm so glad you're here with us today. And also, I'm so glad because guess who we have today? Miss Dorcas Wanganga is here with us, and we are so happy that you're here with us. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
Yes. And thank you for coming. And today we're gonna indulge in a beautiful book here. I'll show you. This book is written by Miss Dorcas Wanganga, one of us. Yes, I am always very much intrigued by such things, and for me it's like even more support than anything else, because when one of us, a woman, a foreigner, gets to do something of this caliber, I think it's like a big deal. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah, this book is beautiful. So stay tuned so that we can dive into it, see what it is all about. And when we come back, Miss Wanganga will tell us something a little bit about herself. So stay tuned, and you know what? Even as you get ready, grab a cup of tea or soya or water, ice water, whatever you drink, sit down and relax and don't scroll. Just stay right here. Also share, call your friends, and like, comment, tell Dorcas something about her book as she continues to tell us more about it. So this is my story again, suicide awareness and prevention platform, where I have advocated myself. I have appointed myself to advocate about mental health, and so that's what we do here, and we do welcome you, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Grace with my story, and Miss Dorcas, tell us about yourself.
Thanks so much, Grace, for having me, for inviting me to come and have this conversation. I have followed you for a while, and I really appreciate what you're doing. Thank you. So my name is Dorcas Wanganga, like she said, and I am from Kenya. I've been in the United States for about 10 years, and I work with developmental disability persons, and I'm very interested in mental health. I have actually trained as a health coach. That was the first thing that I did. But right now, my main interest is mental health, and actually I'm doing a course on that. It's a Christian course that's supposed to help people in a Christian setting, because we are going through a lot of challenges in mental health, and things like addictions and suicides and all that. And so I believe that if more of us came into intervening for such people, we would really make this country and other places a better place. So I love the fact that I can work with people who are going through these challenges, and I can be here with you to really talk more about these and the issues that are affecting the society. So I'm happy to be here, and I hope that we can learn something as we go along.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It is very prudent and I think a calling to have this passion that you even go to school to learn, to be able to help someone else out there. And even as your book says, even if it's only one person, and that has always also been my motto, if it is only one person that gets a turning point from coming to my story platform, hearing somebody's story, and then their life changes for the better, that my work is done.
Exactly.
Basically, my work is done, and that is what your book is also talking about. So we'll be right back. We'll talk about this book more, and please, hey, you do not want to miss, because this book, I'm telling you, I think I'll repeat it. I love it. I wish you can see my notes. Okay, stay tuned. We are here with Wanganga, Miss Wanganga. I love that name because I used to think it's Nganga, like Wanganga. You know?
Okay.
If you're from Kenya or Africa, we have a tendency of calling people by their last name or their husband's name, like Wa of somebody.
Yeah.
So I thought Wanganga was your name, like of Wanganga.
Oh, Wanganga is my dad's name.
Yeah,
yes.
It's a beautiful name. Speaking of your dad, tell us a little bit about your family.
Oh yeah, I come from a very big family. My parents are still alive. They are quite old, but still very healthy. I thank God for that. I have brothers, sisters. I have about four sisters. I have 3 brothers, and I have a son. Actually, my son is the reason why I starting really to research about addictions, and that's what got me into thinking about it. And because I was like, if I am going through this, then there are so many moms who could be going through this. So he's the reason why I really got into that, to really understand what's happening.
How old is he?
Right now he's 26.
Oh my God, she looks like she's the one who's 26.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wow.
So
so glad. So one thing I want to mention about Dorcas is that she is a lifetime supporter of my story. She's the person who is on my back here telling me, Grace, go on. And you don't get to find those people very often.
Right.
You really don't. And so your encouragement, you pushed me. I appreciate it, Dorcas. I really do.
I really love what you're doing. When I saw your first story, the one that you shared, I was like, wow, this is something, because we don't want to deal with mental issues. As much as it's out there, people don't really want to deal with it in your family. You know, some other people get it. It doesn't happen in our family. And so when you're like, oh, I've been that person. I've gone through this stuff. And actually coming out and sharing and wanting to help people with that, that really got me going like, wow, I really want to be part of this. So I was glad that you got into it, and I'm so happy that you come this far. And I'm happy that you've interviewed. You're going to talk about it.
Today. And it's for me, I was, you were among the very first people to ask and to tell me I want to be part of it. You know, because I've always invited, and I'm like, if you feel okay, you're more than welcome to come. You know, give your story, or even if it's not your story, whatever you can do, you know, come, let's do this thing. And you telling me that, I almost teared up. I said, oh my God, thank you. So, and we did that people, or if you follow, you know that we just did my story launch a few months ago, and she was like one of the pioneers, one of the big boss men behind my back. And because of you and all the other team we had, you guys made it happen.
And I see it going far. You know, I see you know, helping people in many ways, because just like you said, one person is
just one person.
One too many. It's one of many, and so that person is going to influence somebody else and influence somebody else. So this is really a wonderful thing that you're doing. So.
Thank you. I appreciate so much. Yes. And you know who else we cannot do without? It's you. You right there, you watching us. There's nowhere we can go if we don't have someone or an audience. So thank you for always tuning in. Thank you even for also being my motivator. You know, they'll be like, hey, I have missed my story. So we are always here. We are always here for you. And if you ever want to come and be a supporter in which way you want, you know, in terms of telling your story or even encouraging somebody, or you have a book, you're more than welcome to come in here and we'll do it. Okay? So can you stay right there? Are you sharing? Have you commented? Okay. Thank you for doing that. We'll be right back. thank you so much, and thank you for your support. Thank you for staying there with us today. As I said, we have Dorcas Wanganga. She has written this beautiful book. I love the color and the cover. It says the 7 steps to help your son in addiction recovery. 7 steps to help your son in addiction recovery, and understanding addiction is rooted in trauma and how your son will recover. So Dorcas Wanganga, a health coach, as she said, and many other hats that she wears. You say in one, I think it's like on the last pages of your book, you say that this book is a journey. It is not just a book, it is a journey.
Yeah.
And that, I was like, oh, okay, I want to know what kind of journey is that. So tell us more about that.
Okay. So I would say it's a journey because it was a journey for me. When I found out, and I'm talking about my sons, and I also have, before I go into it, I want to give a disclaimer that I'm not a medical doctor, I'm not a psychiatrist or a psychologist.
Yes.
Most of what I found is from my own experiences, from other mothers,
Right.
and from also the research that I did from the experts.
Yeah, and that's really good to note.
Yeah.
So that if you have any issues, anything you want to know more, it's okay to go look for professional help.
Yeah.
And you can contact us and we can give you the resources.
Yeah, you can give you the resources, so that's what we can do. So the reason why I call it a journey is because when you start helping your child, and again, I targeted just a son. It doesn't mean that it's not going to help someone with a daughter or
Right.
an uncle or a father or someone. It's just that I wanted to focus to one person. I was speaking to one person, one mother or one son. And so the journey is knowing that you need to understand what's going on and help that person through this process. So it's not like, we're going to, I found out you have an addiction and we're going to fix, this is the fix, and that's it.
Yes.
And I think that's the model that we've been having for a long time. Like, I found out you have an addiction, go to rehab and you're good. That's supposed to be the fix. But from what I understood in studying this book, in doing the research, is that it's a journey. You don't just find out your child is going through an addiction and expect him to recover in 2 days. It's going to be a journey. There's going to be relapses. There's going to be good days. There's going to be bad days. But a time is going to come when this journey will culminate. It's going to reach its peak.
And that is so interesting because in your journey, the interesting part that I found and I loved, because I'm big time on this one, is about self-care.
Yeah.
The book says that you have to first take care of you. Even, you have to learn, get to know what is addiction so that you know how to handle it. And then you also say you have to take self-care. So that's way downline the book.
Right.
But so you wrote this because of sons.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I saw on the book in the beginning, and I'll read, it says, even the seemingly happy teen can succumb to depression and sadness and turn to drugs. Furthermore, our society is becoming more averse to a healthy childhood. Did you know one of the biggest threats to your child in 21st century America is addiction? One of the biggest threats is addiction. One study on 8 public schools and around, and I'm not going to read that, but the point was about how addiction can, just like mental health, which I feel like it's part of mental health, substance abuse. You might not know what I'm going through if I have a mental issue. You might not know someone, as you say here, they seem happy, but they can also succumb to depression and sadness. And then what that leads them to?
Right.
Leads them to drugs. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So I think I'm just gonna go back a little bit in the fact that when I found out about my son's addiction, after going through all the the anxiety, the depression, the anger, and all those reactions that people would normally go through, because nobody wants their child to be the person who is. These things happen to other people's children, not our children, right?
I know.
So that's the thing. And so when it happened to me, got to a point where I was like, I asked my question, why do people actually get into addiction in the first place? And that's what got me into this book. And so as I was doing my research, I found out that trauma is a big thing. But what happens is, especially boys, they don't know how to express what's going on most of the time. Girls usually are able to, because they talk a lot, they are maybe close to their moms, or they have friends and they are just going to complain about things or talk about things too. But boys don't do that. So they have a way of covering that and like wanting to live their life. And so what's happening in this time is, you think your child is fine, but that child has probably gone through an experience that you don't think that is traumatic, or he doesn't think is traumatic. And so they seem to be happy, they seem to be okay. And then suddenly you see them using, they're addicted to whatever, because we talk about addictions as in drugs only, but there are other behavioral addictions that we talk about, you know, like porn, there is food, there is, you know,
social media.
Yeah, social media, there's all kinds of addictions, even food. And so so when you find your child getting into these things, you're asking yourself, what happened? What went wrong? But this child is really trying to solve a problem that they've had that you never knew about, or they don't even know about. Because if this person who's using these things or is doing these things, if they knew that they had this emotional problem, then they would look for the right, you know, treatment.
Right.
But that's where they go. So so that's how that came about. The fact that person is not necessarily, it's not written here that they're going to become addicts. That's what happened to my boy. I really never thought he was a happy child.
Yeah.
And as far as I thought.
Yeah.
You know.
And I'm so wow. Down the book, I know we have started almost in the back,
Right.
but you know, let it flow the way it flows, because it is relevant.
Yeah.
This kid who is happy and who is hiding emotions,
Yeah.
sometimes it is a reflection of you too, because according to your experience, I think chapter 13 or something like that, you talk about your experience with of you and your parents and how you grew up.
Right.
And little did you know, you were also reflecting that on your child.
Yeah.
So we'll come back and we're going to read a few more highlights that are highlighted here. And then you will tell us about the steps, because this book is about steps.
Yeah.
So we'll try to go with the steps so that our viewer can understand, okay, I am here. This is what is going on with my husband, my child, my sister, my brother, my mother. You know, what can I do? What can I do? So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. So today we are talking about steps to recovery in case of addiction. We are looking at a book called The 7 Steps to Help Your Son in Addiction Recovery, written by Dorcas Wanganga here today. So some highlights that I highlighted, Dorcas. This one is talking about early life stress, alcohol and drug addiction. And according to research, you say higher severity and frequency of childhood trauma are almost always associated with increased substance abuse. That's one of the highlights that I had. Another one is by now, we can assume that the pain and heartbreak you have suffered so far. This one is way into the book, talking about a mom who is going through addiction with their kid.
Right.
And so you say, where did it go? That hidden beneath the pain and suffering is hope. That's a little quote that I want to highlight there. Hidden beneath the pain and suffering is hope. So if you're going through addiction, it could be even our viewer, or one of your close person is going through it, or a friend or a co-worker, hidden beneath the pain there is hope. And that's why Dorcas is here today. And that's why we're going to go through the 7 steps now and see, okay, I have all this pain. Right. Dorcas, where is this hope you're talking about? Tell us in the beginning, your first step talks about understanding addictions. How do we do that? How do you do that? And you do bring a story about Julia's son, and you talk about the enemy. So when they start to read your book, they're gonna be wondering what all this is about. So the enemy, what is all this about? What our sons, what our sons, our daughters, our mothers, our sisters, our brothers, what are they predisposed to? Tell us about that.
I think when I went into understanding addiction and understanding the enemy, it's really going back into asking that question, like, why do people get addicted in the first place?
Yeah.
And then seeking to understand what is going on, like what is causing this person to be in this pain. I like the way Dr. Gabor Mate, because he's one of the people that I researched from, the way he explained it was asking the person, what does it do for you? Instead of saying, why do you do it? Because most of the people who are addicted are already feeling a tremendous sense of guilt, or they don't like what they're doing. It's really, at some point, it reaches a point where they really don't like what's happening.
And even the many I have heard, they want to stop.
They want to quit, but they can't, because they've gotten into that, and it's bringing a temporary solution, but they're not able to get out of it. So it's really more about wanting to understand that the enemy is not your child. It's not the person you're using. It's what's going on in their life. And understanding that we are living in a society where there's so much evil, the drugs are there, they're so easily accessible. Of course, spiritual world, Satan is also wanting to destroy families, because all this is about destroying families. So it's understanding that also there is mental issues going on, there's trauma going on, because these are experiences that people go through, but we don't take those so much into account, and you take account of how the person is trying to express what's going on in their life. So when someone gets into an addiction, it's really because they're seeking a solution. That's how it's explained. They're looking for a solution to whatever is going on in them. So instead of you going like, you are the bad person, why can't you stop? Let's try to find out what has been happening in your life that could have led you to seek solution.
What
in a problem.
is this? That predisposed? So is it the same thing as being disposed or predisposed?
Predisposed, sometimes people confuse genetics and predisposition. So it's not a genetic issue. But in a family where some things are happening, like if there's alcoholism or drug abuse or any kind of abuse, sometimes children tend to take on that. And that's why you find that if your father was an addict of, let's say, alcohol, maybe one child takes it, and then the other child takes something totally different, like they become a work addict. So they probably have addictions, but they're not the same kind of addiction. But they all come from the same emotional pain that they had as kids. Because the family environment is always affected by how our parents relate and how in the home environment. Because
that
those things
also
affect people.
Yeah,
but in
that
different ways.
also be also environment. So
Yes.
the environment you're growing up
Yes,
in.
environmental factors are very, very critical in this issue. So being predisposed is just the same thing as diseases. Some people are more predisposed to, let's say, cancer because of a family thing. But if you change your lifestyle, then it doesn't. You don't have to get the cancer. So it's about the realization that this is what's happening in my family. Like if your family, they have addiction issues, then it's having that awareness. If you're able to have the awareness that we have that, so what can I do different so that I don't fall into that?
I like that.
So that's the predisposition.
That reminds me of a book I read about radical acceptance. Accepting things the way they are, even though they are hard things to accept. But then also going, okay, then what do I do now?
Yeah, what do I do? Yes.
What do I do, because this is how it is.
Right.
So you also talk about a roller coaster.
Yeah.
Now, this parent or this loved one of a person with a drug addiction or substance abuse is going through a roller coaster. What is that? What if, in case our viewer right here is going through the same thing?
So the roller coaster, like we've talked, the book is really talking to the mom, because mothers, we agree that dads take a role in this, but moms are the ones who get addicted to the addiction. So that's what happened.
Addicted to the addiction.
Yeah, because now you're so obsessed with what
I
the
think I have
child
that highlight somewhere.
yeah, they're so caught up with what's happening to their child that they forget to live their life.
Yeah.
And so when things start, seeming to improve, they start relaxing a little bit, and then things go down again, because that's the life of an addict. Unless the underlying issue has been resolved, going to rehabs and coming back and taking medications and doing all these things doesn't really fix it. It's usually a temporary thing. So what happens is, today they are good, they go to rehab, they come back, they are good for a week, and then they go back into it. That's another down. So it's a roller coaster. You're just going up and down. You don't know what to do. You're looking for treatments. You're helping him. They're saying, yeah, they want help. They go to rehab. They come out of rehab. They get to prison. They're taken to jail. They come out of jail. So it's back and forth. Even at home, they could be just, today they're not, this week your child comes home, they're fine, they're studying, they're not stuck in the room, you know, watching whatever it is that they're watching, and then you're like, wow, this is getting better. But no, next week something again happens, and then they're triggered, and then they go back down.
Yeah.
So that's the roller coaster.
Wow, no wonder you talk about self-care, because
yes,
if you're in a place
yes,
where you cannot take these,
yeah,
you're also going to be sick.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so you have to be in a place where you know how to handle when it comes to such. Wow. And then you talk about stigma, you know, accepting stigma. How do we, so I understand, especially where we come from, some things are not just spoken of, you know, and I would even imagine even other places, not just where we come from. So tell us about stigma in relation to addiction.
Yeah, so what has happened over the years is that as much as addiction is so wide, it's not just drug and alcohol, it's even behavior and other things. Yes. Some things like alcohol and cigarettes have been taken on as normal. So people who are drinking alcohol, people just say, he just likes to drink. You know, it's not considered like it's an issue that needs to be addressed. And so when you start using things like marijuana, you're using cocaine and heroin, now that's an issue. So it's not like the others are not addictions, but now you're isolated more because now you're using hard drugs, or you're using something that people are just seeing is destroying your life in a way. But you know, even alcohol does the same thing. Yeah. So there's this stigma when it comes to, let's say, generally drugs and alcohol as compared to behavioral addictions. So the way you're treated, people would rather not discuss it, they would rather not see it, you know, not deal with it. And so you find that people will talk behind your back. You won't have people to go and talk to about this. They're not going to talk about it openly. And I've seen that when I tried to share this book among my community, I did not get any response. It was very poor. And I was asking myself, people don't have addicted children, like they don't have addictions going through this struggle. So nobody wants to address the issue.
It is the thing, it doesn't happen to us.
Yeah, it happens to other people. But when it happens to you, you don't want to deal with it. You don't want people to know about it. You want to find a way to deal with it in a private way. So, but you know, it's a society thing. It's happening all over the world. So it's happening to everybody. So the more we come out and not think of it as something that needs to be hidden, we accept that it's something that's happening and it's here with us and it needs to be dealt with, then I mean, why don't you stigmatize someone who has cancer?
Good question. Good question. Yeah.
You all need help.
Right.
So if I can come comfortably and tell you, oh, I'm going through cancer and I need help, why can't I bring come to you and tell you my son is going through an addiction? Can you help me?
Right. That's a very good question, and we'll come back and talk more about this book and all these steps, because it is so interesting, Dorcas. I'm telling you, you did great research here. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. Our viewer, how are you doing? You're still holding on there? All right, good. Stay right there. And today, as I've been saying, we have Dorcas Wanganga talking about her wonderful, informative book. And we just talked about stigma and addiction. And I want to tell you something. If you are going through this issue or your loved one, Dorcas says, with practical knowledge comes freedom. When you realize that your struggle is not unique to you and a relatively common phenomenon, and that you cannot blame yourself or get stuck in regret for how you raised your child, you start to gain a sense of control. I brought that up to encourage you that you might feel stigmatized if you're known that one of your people who are close to you have an addiction to drug or alcohol or all the other addictions that are there, behavioral addictions or and so forth. So when you get this knowledge from this book, you will have freedom. You'll have freedom and knowledge and the know-how and what to do. So coming back to our steps, and maybe you can say something about that quote.
Oh yeah, because one of the things that I encountered, because I talked to several mothers, is this sense of guilt, which is something I also experienced myself. You feel like you failed, like you could have done better. What did I do that was wrong? Why did my child turn out this way? So you feel like you are the only one who is going through this. You forget that there are so many people going through that. And so I had that. I had mothers I could talk to. And so because of this guilt, they end up enabling their children. So because they want to fix this, but they don't know how to fix it. So really I was going to that to just encourage someone that you're not alone. It's happening to other people. And also there's a way out. You can find a way out of this. So instead of being stuck in that cycle, let's find a solution. And we need to find a solution that's once and for all, not going through the roller coaster of going up and down. And that way hasn't worked. Let's find another way.
Right. Beautiful. I like that. So for the person who is struggling with addiction, you mentioned something about how they feel when this is going on, and then I want you to also tell us what is addiction now the definition. But before this person knows I am really addicted, what is it that they feel? In your words, you say that drug is like a hug, it's like a warm hug. And I do know that oftentimes when you're going through something, and you did say about emotional connection, and some people find that as a way to connect or to solve their problem, emotional problem. So they look for the vice. They go to look for the vice. And if that vice is going to hug me and I feel warm, and when I come home and I'm not hugged and feeling warm, I'm being stigmatized by my community or hated or being called words and all that, being identified by that act. If there's a warm feeling I feel out of this thing that is distracting my life, I'm gonna stay there. So talk about this warmness and drug making me feel warm, and also define addiction, and especially according to your favorite, because there's many. You say according to your book, you say there's many definitions of addiction.
So one of the main one is they say addiction is a disease. It's a disease, and so that was something that was really going like, I don't know if it's a disease, and so I had to research a little bit more. So, but my favorite description or how you can explain addiction was by Gabor Mate, who says it's a behavior that a person finds temporary relief or pleasure in and therefore craves, but suffers negative consequences in the long term and doesn't give up despite negative consequences, or when they do give up, they suffer in irritability and withdrawal. So it's like a habit. So what happens is a person is not leaving the house going like, I want to go and buy some alcohol and feel better. What happens is most of the time people just stumble on this thing. So you're hanging out with your friends, so you have to be in that environment. You have to be there, and you're going through something which you may not be aware of. And so you have these people you're hanging out with, and one of them goes like, take a drug of this, it could be marijuana. And then when you get your first puff, the feeling you get is something you haven't had in a long time. And so you do it again, and so you get that feeling of comfort, like a hug. Because the way Gabor Mate was explaining it, he was saying that the question to ask is, what does it do for you? So it does something for that person, and it gives them that relief, whether he was going through an emotional pain, or whatever it was that he was suffering from, he gets that relief. Unfortunately, that relief is temporary. It's not permanent. They have to go back. So with time, they develop tolerance, whereby now you're not feeling anything from that. Yeah, anything anymore. And so that's when people move on to other harder drugs. They move on from this to this, or to any other kind of addiction.
Or even more of what they were taking before.
Yeah.
And now the interesting thing is, if they even try to stop, you say there's withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah,
and so they're gonna do it to avoid this even.
Because again, that feels like it's worse than the drug itself.
Yeah.
The withdrawals may feel worse than that.
Yeah, it must be very hard for them though, if you think about it in that concept.
Yeah, if we spend more time with more empathy and just compassion and just thinking about what this person could be going through, especially a person who comes and tells you, I really want to quit this. You need to understand, because now you need to really seek to understand what is going on in their life. So when you ask these questions, you get a better understanding.
Right. And ask without judgment, I should add that.
Yeah, and I think that's something that we also discussed in the book about asking these questions, having that communication.
Yes. Wow. So would you say then you started by talking about some people define addiction as a disease. Would you say it's a disease? Is it a brain disease?
It cannot all be treated by medication. So there is still the discussion is still out there. But even Dr. Mark Lewis, he's a neuroscientist and he's written a book, The Biology of Desire. He's another person that I was researching on. He himself, he was an addict. I don't remember what drugs he was taking, and he took drugs for a long time. But when he decided to quit, he just quit. He didn't go through a medical treatment. And that's why the disease model is not working very well, because people depend on rehab. People come out of rehab, they go back, they're back and forth. It's not working. So the disease model is not able to fix everything. But there are some addictions like alcohol and heroin that need medication. If you try to withdraw from alcohol or heroin without a medical expert, it could cause death. So that would require intervention. But for most addictions, people can actually quit by help from the people around them, and just getting the right help.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
So you also talk about stages of addiction and types also. So tell us the types and then tell us the stages.
Okay, so when it comes to the stages, of course, they start with the addiction and then there's the tolerance. So it's just, I think it was 3 stages.
Yeah, 3 stages. Yeah, you said there was like the beginning, which is did I write them down? I don't think I wrote them down, but I think I remember the beginning, how they start.
Yeah, that is something I have to check again.
Yeah, so there's the beginning when they start. Which one was the middle? And I'm remembering the last one was the withdrawal.
Yeah,
I think the middle one is the now the one they cannot stay without.
Yeah,
I feel like.
Look at it.
Yeah, okay, we'll be right back. Let's look at that and we'll be right back. We were talking about stages, so there are 3 stages.
Yeah.
Tell us about the 3 stages of addiction.
Yeah, so when a person starts using, they go through stages, because the brain now has to start accepting that. And so what mostly they were lacking is being able to activate the dopamine, the pleasure hormone. And so that's what starts getting activated. And so this is the binge and intoxication stage.
Yeah.
And so that's the first one, when now they're getting to binge and they're getting intoxicated.
Yeah.
And the dopamine levels are going up, and then they go down, and that's when we go to the second one, the withdrawal.
Yeah.
So they start getting withdrawals because of, like, when they're not using it, they need something else.
Right.
And so that's the second stage that they go to. And then the third one is preoccupation. So now they are so occupied with the drugs, they become so dependent on it. The dopamines are not shooting as they should. It's not just like if the dopamine was hitting like this, now it's hitting like this. And so now they are just preoccupied with it because they have to use constantly.
Right.
It's not like at the beginning where they use for some and then they stay for hours without needing another one. Then when they go through the withdrawal, now they get to the preoccupation where now they're just thinking about, where do I get the next fix? So that's the third stage.
They can't do now without it. Like even their body will not let them do without it.
Yeah, so there's the binge, then there is the withdrawal, and then this preoccupation.
Okay,
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah.
And
Tolerance.
And
Because now they are tolerant to their drug.
Yeah.
And so they are not able to live without it. They are not able, not able to live out. They're not able to, the dopamine is not activated when they use the drug. And that's when they tend to use more and more. And here we're just talking about drugs, but it's generally all kinds of addictions.
yeah. And these are which ones? These are the kinds.
So it could be anything. It could be just internet, it could be porn, it could be eating, it could be work, it could be gaming, it could be anything that you get pleasure from and it brings any adverse effects afterwards. Something that's taking you away from what you should be doing and you're so preoccupied with it and you know you should not be doing it. So, and you say it, and people tend to say it like off the cuff, like I'm addicted to this, which is really true because they know it's affecting maybe their work or their relationships or whatever. So that's what the addictions, the other addictions
And
are.
these other ones, behavioral ones, also affect the mind just like the drugs?
It's the same thing because when you start using, the brain is always changing. You know, when you start reading a new book, when you start a new hobby, when you get married, when you fall in love, the brain changes all the time. They call that neuroplasticity. Neuroplasticity.
Yes,
That one.
neuroplasticity. And
Yeah.
it adjusts to that new thing.
So it creates new pathways. It's like walking, and I think that's what I said. I tried to describe it in my book. It's like walking. It's like a field, and you have this field where the paths are not walked on a lot, and then you create new paths. So if you're not using this path and you create another path, the brain adapts to that path. So that's what the brain does. So addiction changes how the brain works, but so does anything that we do. It affects how the brain works. So
Wow, that's very interesting. And even I think we can bring it like, which I'm thinking is just like, I was thinking of a Kikuyu saying, but I cannot now remember it. But if you don't use it,
you lose it.
you lose it.
Yeah.
So in that concept, I kind of feel like it can fall into that. You know, if you don't let your mind work naturally, you're boosting it with other things. It will not do it without this boost. Yeah.
Yeah, because now you've created that pathway. So that's where it's
That new
heading.
pathway.
So you've let the other pathway go. And that's what happens with addiction. When you're in this preoccupation, it's like all these other pathways are already now blocked. And that's when now when you get out of it, you're supposed now to recreate those pathways and get back to them and get away from the addiction.
Yeah.
So it's just a matter of when, and that's why the rehabs really don't work very well. So unless that person now has the support and makes that decision and starts getting into other things that are not as destructive, now he starts living a different life where it's
To
not.
replace
Yeah.
this.
Yeah, there has to be something that comes in place of what was happening
Yeah.
when they were addicted to whatever they were addicted to.
Wow. This is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
When you talk about the other step, these steps we've been talking about here were called understanding addictions. So that's what we've been talking about throughout. And then you go to step 2. You're calling it connecting addictions to trauma.
Yeah.
And you have touched trauma here and there,
Right.
as we've been talking. So there's this part you said addiction is not the problem. What is the problem then?
Yeah. So, and I think that's the reason why I was saying that was because people tend to think that addiction is the problem, because you forget that addiction is actually someone's solution to a problem, right? So if that's the solution that they found, how can it be the problem? You can't convince them it's a problem. But then you need to find out what is the problem. Why did that person get to that place? And that's why I liked what, like I said before, Gabor Mate was asking, what does it do for you? Or I know there was this discussion between Oprah Winfrey and Bruce. I think Bruce, there's a doctor, he's called Bruce something, I forget his name. And they wrote, when they wrote the book, What Happened to You? I don't know if you read that book.
No, yeah.
I read it when I was doing my research. So the question about trauma or whatever is happening in someone's life is asking the question, what happened to this person? So it's going back to their life, to how did they grow up? What kind of environment was it? What could have caused this person to go through this emotional pain that they're seeking for a problem and for a solution, and the solution they're finding is in the drugs or in the
Which is
addiction.
a problem in itself.
Yes,
You actually is a place you have mentioned that.
Yeah.
It is fixing a problem with a
With a
problem.
problem, yeah.
Yes.
So unfortunately, that's how it goes.
Yeah.
So I had to really go into that because one of the things that all these doctors that I researched on were agreeing on is that childhood experiences affect most of what happens in adulthood. So when a child is growing up, the way they deal with pain is by crying.
Right.
But if that child is not soothed, if they're not held and assured that no, it's okay, this is okay, then they continue. Because the brain is made to protect you. That's the work of the brain. So it has this response of flight or fight. So what if you are supposed to fight, but there's nothing to fight? What if you're supposed to have a flight, but the bear that you're supposed to run away from comes home every night? We're talking about going through a trauma, like your parents are fighting all the time. They may not be beating you up. They are fighting. That's traumatic for a child. They don't know how to deal with it. And unfortunately, children take the pain. They are narcissistic in that way, where everything is about them. When it's a child, it must be my fault my parents are fighting. It must be my fault this happened. And so they're going through this pain and they don't know how to deal with it. So it's not the addiction that was the problem. It's what was happening that they were not able to deal with. And now they are adults and they found a solution, which is whatever it is that they're using. So it's a way.
Or even they start as teenagers.
Yeah, they might even start as 9 years old.
Yeah,
10
the
years
minute
old.
they have access to other things.
Yeah. So when the environment is conducive to whatever it is that they need, then they go into it.
My God, that is even scary.
Yeah, and that's why we cannot get out the element of trauma, especially in childhood. And what we call trauma as adults is not necessarily what a child would perceive as trauma.
Yeah.
It's probably two different things.
So what is it?
In terms of when, like for example, when you beat up a child, it might not, for you it's, I'm punishing this child, but if you didn't take the time to explain to this child, of course it's already traumatic beating up a child, right? But if you're not able to explain to them, this is what I'm doing and this is what you do, do you believe that what I'm doing is right? That kind of conversation. So, and you do it so many times, so the child is traumatized and they don't understand why you're doing that. But for you, you're doing what a parent is supposed to do. But you've missed one more step, which is to soothe this person. Because you're supposed to punish a child with love. You're supposed to understand, I'm not doing this to kill you or because I hate you, but because I love you. I don't want you to go in that.
I'm punishing the action that.
Yeah, because the Bible says also it allows us to spare the child, you know that. And so I do quote a lot of scripture also.
Yes, you do.
So yeah, let's not forget even what the Lord told us to do, but with love.
With love. Beautiful. I love that. How are you liking the conversation, right? Beautiful, 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 intelligent. You're very intelligent, Dorcas. It's good to have such sessions so you know really. I don't know you in this aspect, so I'm like, wow. So if you have something you want to say under the comment section, please say, ask a question. She can come back to you, inbox or something. However way, if you will need resources, and we'll make sure we put some resources at the end of these videos. Just ask if you have a question, if you're going through something, if you're in even a crisis. There is a number called 988. You can call, and even substance abuse numbers, and I will put all this information at the end of these videos and even on the description. So make sure to check that out so that you know what to do in terms of this. And we're gonna come back, continue, and talk more about the 7 steps of helping your son. And I want to add your loved one, your friend, your neighbor, your co-worker with addiction. Stay tuned. Welcome back again. Our conversation, last place we were at, we were talking about connecting addictions to trauma, and Dorcas was talking about addiction not being the problem. And what people do, they try to solve the problem with a problem. So we need to know what really is the problem. Now, tell us more about addictions to trauma, and what are these connections to trauma in terms of addiction, and tell us more about that chapter.
Yeah, so like, it's something that we have really mentioned, but that's what I found consistently when I was doing my research. Like, there's always something happening when the child went through addiction. And it's not necessarily that every child has to go through the same. We are not the same. We all respond to things differently. So there's a child who is going to go through traumatic experiences and they will not go into addiction.
Yeah.
They will.
So are they the reminders, like these traumatic reminders? They remind. What's that about traumatic reminders?
Reminders are kind of something happening now that takes you back, which you may not necessarily connect. Because what happens with trauma or experiences in life, especially the unpleasant one, like I said, the brain wants to protect you. So it's kind of going to put that thing in the subconscious mind, or a place where you're not going to access it consciously. And so something may happen today, a perfume, or something happens to do, and it triggers.
It's like nostalgia kind of thing.
So,
but now in a bad way.
So,
right?
You could say that. But yeah, it's just triggering what has happened before. And so so someone may have gone through, for example, sexual abuse, and the person who did it was wearing a certain kind of perfume. Yeah, they may not remember that happening. Maybe they were very young. But when a person maybe comes and wears that same perfume, they react. It triggers, but they don't know why.
Yeah.
So it's not something that's consciously. You don't go like, oh, I was traumatized, that's why I'm doing this. Sometimes when it comes to, if you did know that, then you wouldn't seek solutions in deciding drugs. And so you probably find solutions, you'd go to a doctor, you'd go and get counseling or something, or see a psychiatrist or something. So it's really what is happening when it comes to
the reminders. Yeah, I know you talk about a reminder, a very practical one, which I can't remember right away now. But you know what? We actually shouldn't be telling you every little thing in this book, because what? We need you to look for it. And Dorcas will tell you where to get it. Because it is prudent, it is advisable. You read it for yourself, so that all the things we're talking about, you can read for yourself, because it's very, very, very informative. And you also talk about traumatic experiences, and this particular one, you're calling it molly coddling. Never heard of that one before.
Really?
Yes.
So I think, like before, I mentioned about beating a child.
Yeah.
And so when we think about how we raise our children, sometimes we do things in extremes. We are not able to find that balance. So mollycoddling is where now you're not even able to have to allow the child to have the autonomy to experience things.
Right.
As a child. You don't want the child to fall. You don't want the child to eat the wrong food. You don't want the child to do this. You don't want them to experience anything bad. So they are very, very, very protected. And so when they go out in the world, they don't know how to deal with the world without you. And those are things that happen with most parents. Maybe because of something that happened to you. Maybe because your parent was not as attentive to you. You went the extreme side.
To be attentive to, oh my God.
Extremely.
Yes.
And so you don't want this child to cry. This child, you don't tell them no. So they're the ones who get to make decisions. They tell you what they want, what they don't want. They'll watch TV until 2 a.m. in the morning. They'll do whatever they want.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what mollycoddling is about. It's
my
about
gosh.
allowing a child to have so much
freedom,
and no autonomy of they cannot make decisions on their own. They whatever they want is what you go with. And
so loving them is okay, but you need to. I think that
you need to still be the parent.
Yeah, you do mention about that. They don't. They almost don't even realize who's the parent.
Yeah.
You know, and also boundaries.
Yeah.
That's where now you bring boundaries too.
Yeah, boundaries.
Love them all you want, but also you can only go this far.
Yeah, boundaries come when we're talking about the person who's an addict. I think that's where I was talking about boundaries mostly.
Okay.
But the mollycoddling part was usually how we raise our children, how we allowing them to experience things Are they the ones making decisions in the family? Are you the parent or are they the parent? And do you allow them to actually cry? Like, should they understand that they don't always get what they want, that life is not that way, and then when they go out and then they realize, oh,
there is a no in life.
Yeah, they go to school and they can't deal with school because the teacher says no, the teacher says that, other children are like this.
That's very, very interesting. Very. I like that. Mollycoddling. Mollycoddling is one.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So you have step 3 of the recovery steps. You say nourish your spirit with self-care.
Yeah.
And this one of your chapters is my favorite, and boundaries is my favorite. I like to talk about self-care, I like to talk about boundaries, and I like to talk about mindset, and I practice them.
Right.
I try my best because I always say life is a process, and it's a process. We have to keep learning, and like I just learned mollycoddling.
Yeah.
So how do we nourish our spirit with self-care in relation to addiction?
Yeah, so I think earlier when we started, we mentioned how moms become addicted to the addiction.
Yeah.
Their whole life is about it. And I know that's something that I went through for a while. You know, all I could think about was addiction. You know, where is my son? Where is he now? What's happening? Is he using? What is he using? You know, all these things. Like, what if he's arrested? What if he's killed by his, drugs friends? What? All these things are going through my head, and I'm going crazy. So imagine, and he's far. Imagine if this child or this person is maybe close to you. They leave your house in the morning. You don't see them at night. You don't see them for a week, and all you're thinking about is about them. Where are they? What are they doing? What are they eating? So you are so obsessed with them that you don't take time for everybody. You forget everybody else, even yourself. You forget to take care of yourself. You forget to eat. You forget to pray. You forget to just live a normal life. Spend time with other people. So, and then you're spending so much time also just talking about the addiction and the problem. And that's something that I saw a lot with most moms, that they are just talking about their son and their addiction. And maybe it's someone who has been gone for months. They don't know where they are. And so they're so preoccupied with that. It doesn't help. Because when you meet them, now you go to that extreme of now you're indulging them in a way that is not very healthy. You're not dealing with the issue that has been happening. And now because now you're so happy that they're back home. And so because you're not in that healthy state. So being able to take care of yourself, you're more healthy and you're more present. So when that person comes back, or when that person is not using, you're able to have a conversation with them because you're also mentally alert. So it's very, very important to really spend time and take a step back and not to be too obsessed with this, what's happening. Just understand that it's an emotional thing going on. And so your job is, how can I help? As in, I can't fix this, but how can I help? If he wants, when he's ready for help, how can I help? And what situation should I
take care of you?
How should I be when I'm helping? Because you cannot be able to have a decent conversation when you're anxious, when you're depressed, when you're angry, or whatever it is that's going on.
Because that's what you're gonna give also.
That's the energy.
Oprah. Ian Levinson says it. If you don't fill your cup,
you can't feel it.
You gotta feel it. So whatever flows out. And I always also say, whatever you fill it with is what will flow out.
Exactly.
So fill it with the good, so that the good comes out.
Exactly.
So that makes a lot of sense. Okay, so you do talk about what you had to do for yourself to get, or one of the things that you had to do to get yourself in that place where you'll be able to deal with your son and it's the retreat back in 2021. Tell us about that.
So before the retreat, I was waking up in panic attacks at night. Like, I'm not able to sleep. I'm waking up, I'm praying, I'm like so anxious, I'm so scared. I'm calling the family all the time, and then when I hear something, I don't even want to hear the phone call now. My cousin, he was staying with my cousin, and so when she would call, I'd be like, now why is she calling? So that anxiety was just too much. And so when I was invited to go for a retreat in Colorado. by some sisters, some friends, and it was a health retreat. And I was thinking, oh no, I have too much going on. I shouldn't go. Like really, who gets?
I have a book. I'm reading a book.
Yeah, and my son, all these things are going on. I don't know. I think no, it's not probably a good idea. Then I just said, okay, I'll just go.
Yeah.
Just go. And so I went. It was a very interesting place because it's the mountains, Colorado. No network, so phones no working.
Yeah.
So it was pretty neat, and so I stayed there for about 5 days. And the retreat was good, the food was good, we were having good conversations with the people over there. And I was having this backache because I never have pains.
Right.
I was having this backache that wasn't going away. And by the time I left that place, it was gone.
Yeah, that was very interesting.
It was amazing.
Wow.
I came back, no back pain. I was feeling so relaxed. I was feeling so much better. And I was going wow, why do we live if we were not there, life would not go on. So that was a very important experience for me because there was so much that I needed to be doing. I think I carried my laptop because I was planning to get some work done, right?
Yeah, you said that.
So, and that's what we do. We just go on holiday, but we go with our work, which is ridiculous. Because
you come home with work from work.
Why do we do that? So work, even God gave us 24 hours. 8 hours you work, 8 hours you relax and do some other things, and 8 hours you sleep. But so we get so carried away by what's happening in our work and everything, and we forget that. So there was no internet. That was a good thing. I did not touch my laptop. I did not touch my phone. I got time to relax and spend time with other people, just talking and praying and talking about health things and the fresh mountain air. It was really good for me. So I like that.
That's a challenge for me too. I need to go to the mountains.
Yes. So,
and you too. It's okay to take some time.
Oh yeah, it's critical that you do, especially if you're going through anything, because we all have struggles. With our children, with our families, with jobs, with everything,
and even ourselves. Even our mental health sometimes is not the best. And just taking a break, just a pause is as good as a rest.
Yes.
So just that. So if you are there tired all the time, take a pause. One day just say, I'm not gonna cook today. Let's eat pizza. It might not be healthy. She's a health coach. That's how I'm laughing. We'll be right back. We're talking about nourishing the spirit with self-care. If you are surrounded or you have addiction going on, or your son or your daughter or your close beloved one, and you talk about Mrs. Harper in this chapter, and tired moms, and even how church sometimes or your group organizations or support groups, they're not even helping. Tell us a little bit about that before we go to the next step, which is step 4, communication.
So I think when we were talking about Mrs. Harper, it's because she had these 2 sons, and one of them got into addiction, and she was a single mom, and she's doing pretty good until she found that one out. And since she was very high up there, as usual, it doesn't happen to my family, it has to happen in other people's families. So she could not process that. And so for a long time, which is what happens, is people living in denial.
Right.
It's happening, but you're in denial for so long, until it reaches a point where you realize, wow, things are really bad, because now your child is now doing all these crazy things. Maybe he's stealing from you, or he's getting arrested, or any kind of thing, and that's where reality hits you. And so she started going to these meetings, and they're not helping because she's not in the right state of mind. She's too exhausted. She's working, she's trying to keep her home, she's trying to keep her job, she's trying to keep the other son, and she's also now obsessed with the other son. So she could not really make it. And so she really needed to get to a point where now she found a balance and how to deal with this whole thing, because she was going to lose her job because of the way she was. Now she's not able to focus on her job.
Right.
So it affects so many things when things are happening. And so it's about seeking for the right help and not just going for any kind of group, because there's so many groups where people go and they just talk about the same thing. And so it's like you're feeding each other out of the pain. Let's find a group where you can find the solution to what is going on. Because I think even as women, sometimes you can talk so much about a problem and not the solution, and that's something that I encountered a lot. People are really complaining about the problem. my son this, my son that, my son that. Let's talk about how do we fix this? What's the solution?
What do we do? And you know that is what is going on in our community right now.
Yes.
You know, so many bad things going on, but it's like we don't even know what to do. Yes, we are seeing it, we're talking about it, but what are we doing?
Yeah.
What are we doing?
Yeah. It's about seeking solutions.
Yeah, seeking solutions. And I also feel at this time our community also needs to listen to our kids. Let's hear from them too. You know,
that's why the child is finding solutions elsewhere, because they're not able to come to you.
Yes.
If your child is able to come to you with confidence, knowing you're not going to respond in a harsh way, you're going to sit there and listen.
Yes.
And actually try to understand what are you talking about? What is going on? Like if you're being bullied in school, what's going on? You know, how are you responding? They should be able to come to you.
Yeah.
If they're not able to come to you as a parent, what are you doing?
You're not helping the situation, and this is one of the reasons they cannot come to us, because we're not even available. Always working, and that's why you're encouraging us. It's okay to take a break. It's okay to nourish ourselves, our spirit, so that we have even the time, literally the time, not just being there, but also away from work. You're home. If they need to talk to somebody, they can come home and find you home.
Yeah, I think that's another thing that I mentioned. People are just too busy for their children. I think we lost sight of what is the most important thing here on earth. Yeah. And I think raising children is the most important thing.
It is the most.
If God blessed you with children,
you mentioned it.
It's the most important job.
Yeah.
So we'd better take it seriously. Yeah. So who are you working for? If your child is going to end up in jail or in prison or dead, who are you working for? So can we figure out how we can have more time with these children? And if you don't develop that relationship when the child is growing up, you're not going to develop it when they're 21. No. It's not going to happen. So it has to be something that they have since childhood. You have to be the safe place all the time. Yeah. Even when they come and tell you, oh, I was in school and we had alcohol and I took a little bit of it. How are you going to react? Hey, did I tell you cannot take alcohol?
Next time they won't tell you.
They won't tell you. But your question should be, okay, so how was it? How did you feel? You know, they'll tell you. Oh, it made me feel good. Yeah. Now you know you're in trouble. Yeah. Right? Yeah. If they're feeling good because of taking alcohol or something that they tried that's bad, then you should be concerned. Yeah. So
and
it's
even
them how they communicate.
Right. And them just coming, being brave enough to come and open up to you, that should tell you you need to know how to really handle this situation and how to open up and sit down and talk with this kid. And that's all we really need to do here as parents, young parents specifically, as we, teenagers and even 20-year-olds are still young. I feel like they still need guidance. And that's why such a book is so important, because it is full of information. And what I like is that you did not just focus on addiction itself as a problem, but also on our well-being, of us knowing what it is. But you are learning, we are educating ourselves by reading this book and not getting to know how do I deal with it. I like the way you brought it out. It's very, very.
Thank you.
Like you just want to read. You just want to read more. It's like, yes, I'm reading about addiction, but it's like even I'm reading for me. Like it's helping me before I go help that other person. And I think that's a beautiful goal and thing.
Thank you.
Okay, so communication, steps for communication. What is it about communication? Wow. You say it's broken.
Yeah.
Is that what you just said here? Is that what
I think that's what you were talking about here. I think we've forgotten how to communicate. And most of the communication that we have is not listening. We're supposed to be actively listening. That's why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. And so as a parent, you're supposed to listen to your children.
You got that?
Listen to your children. What are they saying? It doesn't matter, but it's you are the parent. So it's you who is able to decide how to respond to how they're communicating.
Right.
If your child is starting to speak in a certain way, you want to know what is going on. If this didn't come from the family unit, where is it coming from? And why are they adopting these habits? I know they're exposed to a lot of things. There's internet, there's everything. More than that's why parents need to be more vigilant now than before. We're supposed to be more vigilant because of the exposure our children are.
Yes.
And so when it comes to communication, you have to be very careful. Be very careful on how you communication. And here we are talking about someone who is an addict, for example. And so the approach is, how do you approach this person when you find out about they are already using or they are already addicted to whatever it is that they are addicted to?
Right.
What kind of questions are you asking questions, or are you just giving complaints and arguments and all this? How are you communicating? So are you asking questions? Are you really listening to the answers? Are you trying to find a solution? Are you trying to find what exactly is going on in their mind and in their life and in the experiences that they are having? So communication is important in that way, and you also have to think about how do you communicate as a family. Are you rude to each other? Are you polite to each other? Like, when you see these changes, is it because they are happening from something external, or is it something that has been happening in the family?
Right.
Or is it something that you miss?
Yeah.
So it's important in that way. It's not about you talking all the time. It's also listening.
Yeah. So it's not about how we kind of grew up knowing, if it's a no, it's a no. You don't have avenue to discuss anything, So that's what you're trying to say. We gotta be open to be able to hear them and even converse with them, know where they're coming from.
Yeah, we are living in a different time, right? Our children are very bright. They're asking questions, and if you don't respond to them, they're going to find answers somewhere else.
Yeah.
So I'd rather they ask me the questions, I'd rather they annoy me with the question than they find those answers.
Because they'll find
out there. They'll find them. And so why shouldn't you be the first person that they come to?
Yeah, so some of the things you talk about, offering them information, being empathetic to them. But I remember there's some place you talk about a neighbor shouting and something like that. You remember something like that in the book?
Oh yeah, it's this mom who had kids and the son is just yelling. She's become very rude.
So what do you do as a mom? You have a kid like that.
I think that's what we're talking about, communication.
Yeah.
If your child is yelling, is he yelling alone? He's not just yelling on his own. So
say,
why are you responding to
what
yelling?
If it's the substance, whatever is going on in their life? It could not be even substance, it could be just some mental crisis, yeah? And they come to your home and they start yelling. What do you do?
The thing is, for the most part, most parents yell back. Most parents yell back. So it's very rare for a person who just comes and starts doing things, and if you don't react to those things, that they continue. I mean, who are they going to yell at if you're not in the room?
Nobody.
Right? So it really depends on how you're going to respond to it. If this person is banging doors and doing things, you have to figure out a way how to really communicate that.
Yeah. Okay.
Right?
That makes sense. And now we come to my other favorite chapter, boundaries.
Right.
As we are about to get done, maybe you can touch boundaries and healing the trauma also, and the last chapter, which is a new start. Just kind of combine those as the last part of this video when we come back. Okay,
Sounds good.
all right, hold it right there, do not scroll away. Okay, our viewer, how is it going? How are you doing? Good? Are you enjoying this conversation? Because I am enjoying it. Yeah? So, we've been talking about communication. Dorcas told us what's broken communication in relation to addiction. Now, Dorcas, here we want to know about boundaries. And I said boundaries is one of my favorite subjects to talk about and to practice. But as I was reading your book, as I told you during the break, I was amazed how boundaries, especially when raising up children, even if there is no addiction involved,
Right.
it can be tricky.
Right.
Because you don't know when it's a wall, you're putting a wall or a boundary. Or now when it comes to addiction, is it enabling? So tell us about that chapter. Interesting, beautiful chapter. About
Yeah,
boundaries.
that's quite an interesting, and there's a very fine line when it comes to boundaries. Like you're saying, when you're raising children, when do you say this is a no, this is a yes? It's a very fine line, and I think that's why we need to seek wisdom as we are raising our children.
Yeah.
When it comes to addiction, it's just being able to understand that now we need to have respect. You know, we want to be, every mother needs respect. You know, they deserve the respect, or every parent, even if it's the father, you know, they both require, and the children also deserve their own respect. But now you need to have a stand on what should be happening in this home. So it's being able to say, you know what, we won't have any friends who use those things. We won't have friends if all you do is surf the internet. We won't have those kinds of friends if that's what's happening, because you can see it's destroying your child's life. And you know, things like language. What kind of language are you having? Like, this is a boundary. Like, if you guys don't talk rude, you don't use curse words in the home, then you're like, no, this is not acceptable in this home. And so since you've already had that communication, you're already able to have that conversation with your child or whoever it is that's going through the addiction, then you're able to also express, this is what I find unacceptable. And so it's not going to happen in this home. If it happens, then you need to have consequences, and you need to have consequences that you can follow through. Don't just threaten and don't do. You need to have consequences.
Because they do test you. They will test you.
Yeah, they will. And that's what children do. If they see that you don't have any backbone, then they will not, then there's no boundaries there. You're not doing anything. And that's how children get your respect. You being the parent. As old as they are, they're still under your roof. That's how you get your respect. So enabling is also a very, very fine line, because that's, I think, what was the biggest thing that when I talked to mothers, that's one of the biggest challenges. Should I give them money? Should I allow them to stay here? Should I allow them to do this? And so because of mothers being nurturing, they find themselves like giving them money. Like, he's asking for money, he's lying to you, obviously. He's telling you, oh, I'm going to pay for, I don't know, my car or something, but you know very well he's going to use. So what are you going to do about this? So you want to help. Okay, go and fix the car yourself. Go and pay that bill yourself. Don't give them the money, because you know it's not going to do what it's supposed to do. So it's just being realistic and understanding that this is what's happening, and the way I can help this person. Yes, I'm not going to throw them under the bus, but the way I can help them is to show them that I'm not going to give this thing that's going to destroy you more. And it's because you're working on everything else. You're working on your communication, you're working on seeking to understand what's going on. So all these things have to come together, because you've already gone through the first step, which was understanding the addiction. You've understood, or you're understanding that this child had gone through something that they're dealing with. Maybe it's even a mental issue. And so since they're seeking that solution over there, you've understood that, and so your response to all that they do is a little different. And so how you're portraying it and how you're communicating it is also different. So even when you're setting up the boundaries, you're communicating in a loving and very very compassionate way. And so you're not doing it like throwing words around you. Maybe you're even having a sit down, because I think I mentioned that even with addicts, they have good days and bad days. There are days when someone will not be using or will not be indulging in that behavior at that time. So that's what you should be watching for. When they're having that moment when they're not in that intoxicated or whatever, and then you're like, wow, I'd love to, since I'm so excited that you're not using today, can we like have a conversation? And so you sit down and have that conversation.
So communicate when they're able to
understand. They're able to understand and communicate. Don't start yelling at someone who comes in and they're high on something. It's not gonna work. And that's when you're trying to set up boundaries. You're saying, oh, you shouldn't come here intoxicated.
They will not hear you.
Yeah, so you need a lot of wisdom on how to deal with this. So it's work, but you want to work in the right direction, where you're actually helping him and helping yourself and everybody else, because you probably have other children.
Right. And this
you need to protect.
Right. Yeah, and you did talk about that. You did say about boundaries. Oh my God, why is it running away from me? I was thinking about it, so that's why they say listen without thinking what to answer.
What to ask, listen.
Okay. It might come back. If it comes back, that's fine. If it doesn't, let's go to the next one. The next step is called heal the trauma, heal the addiction. I like that. So how are we going to do that?
Yeah, so this book is mostly based on trauma. It's not dealing with anything else. It's mostly trauma, childhood trauma, and any other trauma that a child may have gone through.
Right.
Because any doctor will tell you that there could be other reasons why someone is addicted.
Yeah.
So my focus was mostly trauma. So there are ways to heal the trauma. So if someone has gone through, and like we mentioned earlier, you need to have go back in time and really try to find out what could have happened to this child. Is there anything that I didn't know about? Were there experiences that could have happened? For example, I remember raising my child. I used to have nannies, yeah? And so I would come home sometimes and I would find the nanny is gone. The child is alone. So those are things that I would not have known if I hadn't gone home. Right. And so I don't know how many times it happened because I didn't go home all the time.
Yeah.
So I don't know how long that child cried until they were they're not crying anymore because there's no one to soothe them. So those are things that maybe you had seen and never thought much about, and now you're thinking about it and you're thinking, wow, maybe that could have been a factor. Maybe it was a neglect on my part or something that I did wrong, or and it's not about you getting guilty or feeling like you're a bad parent. It's just being aware that something could have happened that could have led to this. And so when you're going through that, and with that understanding, you're able to direct that person to the right help that they need. So if they can get through the trauma, and then if that heals, let's see what's going to happen with the addiction. Most likely it's all gonna go away. So I was mentioning a few therapies that people could use. Music is amazing for most people. I don't know about you, but music is something that calms me. When I'm going through a stressful time and I just turn on the music and I'm just listening to the music and don't want to think about any other problems, I calm down. So those are therapies. Movement is another thing. When blood is flowing through the brain, it's flowing and you're getting all this, because you get the hormones are also, their hormones also work very well with movement. The serotonin, the dopamine, they are all activated when you're moving. So movement is also another thing that you need to do. So it's really amazing the things that you can do at home or just normally that would really help. There's also nutrition. What kind of food are you eating? Are you just eating junk food? Are you feeding the brain? Because the brain is what's affected, right? And so the brain needs good food. It needs healthy food. It needs hydration. So it needs all the plants and the vegetables and the water and the movement. The blood needs to flow. So all these things need to come together. And of course, you need to get expert help. If you have to see a therapist, I talked about trauma-based CBT, which is something that you can go for, or a psychiatrist or psychologist. You still need the professional help if it comes to that. But if you don't, then also healing can also happen in just rebuilding your relationship. If your relationship was broken with your child, you had some distance, some things were broken, you can fix that when you're working on that. So that's also a form of healing trauma, because especially boys, they have this thing with their mother. And so if you're able to rebuild that and have that working again, that would also help. So there's so many things that need to come together for this trauma to start, to them to understand that it happened, there's nothing we can do about it, and this is how it's supposed to be solved, not with whatever it is.
Not with the problem, not solving the problem with the problem.
Yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
Okay, now we have done all that, and even as we go to, maybe even before we go to the new start, let's talk about one final thing that you've talked about that I found interesting, and I do plan to do it.
Okay.
You're calling it the childhood experience test. The adverse childhood experience test, ACE. Is that
ACE?
Right? ACE, yes.
Yeah.
What is that?
So as I was doing my research, I found that very interesting, because I read this book by, it's called The Deepest Well by Nadine Burke. She's a doctor. She worked with children, and so she was trying to understand what is happening with these children, why the illnesses, and she was trying to understand what was going on, until she worked with one boy who was not growing up. He was, I think, very, very small, and he wasn't growing up, and they could not understand what was going on with him until one day when the mother told her that that boy had been sexually abused when he was, I think, 4 years old by someone who was staying with them. And so when they found out, they threw the guy out. The boy did not, of course he was 4, so he never got it, but that's when he stopped growing. The size that he was at 4 years old is the size he stayed at 9 years old. So that trauma, so as she was doing more research, she found out that trauma is what affected that boy. Of course, he's not going to come and tell you I was abused. He doesn't know. He doesn't know what was going on. And so they came up with this test, the ACE test, Advanced Childhood Experiences Test, which is a test that really, it's a bunch of questions that you answer, and they're really kind of telling you about what the experience that you've gone through and how they could have affected you. So it's a number between 1 and 10 where you pick up. So this could be number 4. You know, my parents, one of them went to jail, that's number 9. You know, they used to fight. You know, I don't remember the exact questions that were, but when you do that, you get a pretty good idea of what could be
what you went through. Exactly.
What you went through. But for her research was more based on diseases. So it's interesting to find that even with trauma, most diseases also as a result of traumas that you experienced. So it's like a whole cycle. Like if these things didn't happen, like life would be so much better. Like if those traumas are not happening. But you see, trauma happens in relationships, and healing happens in relationships. And so we need to find out how can we heal from this. And so that's really what we're talking about. Okay. The ACE is about.
You know, I'll look at the website that I can find it, and I'll put it in the list here for us, and I will do it, and I hope you will do it too, because I think it's good. It's good to see.
Why not?
It's good to see where you are. These things. So we will come back. But when we come back, we're going to talk about the last chapter. You're so lucky we went through the whole book.
Amazing. What are they going to read?
No, those were tidbits. Listen, you cannot not read this book. You got to. You got to read the book, because what we did not mention is even more and better. This was good too, but this one, the in details, the details, deep ones, even better. So get the book. When we get to end, you will tell us where to get the book.
Right.
And also write it. We'll write the resources down there. Stay right there. Don't move. Okay, so in conclusion of this wonderful, full of information book, Dorcas is going to talk about the last chapter, which is called New Start. And you start by saying it is not smooth at all.
No, it's not a smooth journey. It's something that I've seen over and over again, and I've even seen it in my own experience. It's not that you're going to have this. You start today and tomorrow you're done. There is going to be that roller coaster that you have to go through. You have to go through a lot of work that you have to do, and a lot of praying, and a lot of talking, and a lot of love, and a lot of things need to shift around, because until this problem comes, you don't realize that there's been a problem for a long time. And so that's where we come to where we are talking about a new start, or stopping the generational cycle. Because what happens in most families, and I could talk about my own family, I don't know about my grandparents, but I know my dad, he was using alcohol. And so that is something that I also saw with his brothers and his family. And then this has kind of trickled down to the my family, us, which didn't last for a long time. Funny enough, my brothers, nobody is an addict in the family. And then now it's going to the grandchildren. So what I'm talking about is, this is a cycle that's often generational, just like most things. Because you have gone through an experience, it tends to be taken over by your children, and so you pick it up. So New Start is where now you stop that cycle. You want to stop that cycle of addiction. We're not going to be known as a family of addicts. We're not going to be known as a family of mental illness. What are we going to do about this? And so it's starting anew by learning these things. And just knowing that everything that's happening in this life, there's also the spiritual aspect.
Right.
We are spiritual. God created us that way, and so we have to understand that this life that we are living, things that are happening, is not God's will. It's not what He would want for us and for our children and for our families. So it's thinking about going back to the basics. Let's have that family unit back. Let's have the relationships back, and also understand that children are a blessing. And I'm just going to read a small from my favorite writer, who is Ellen G. White. She said that training children is the grandest work that was committed to humanity.
Right.
They belong to God, and our job is to train them for Him. Our pain from their bad habits is as a result of our disobedience and neglect of duty. But God has given us the sure promise that we can turn this cycle around and save our children by tapping on the greater power available. I honestly cannot think of any other power besides the Word of God. It's full of promises for our good. Jesus spent more time healing than preaching. So it's not about talking. It's also healing, and healing happens also mostly in relationships with God, with each other.
Yes. And that's a very important note to note as we end, because higher power, you call it, and I love to call it the same. We might not be able to do it ourselves. We might do all the learning.
Yes.
We might do all the things we're supposed to do to the T, But then if we don't have that spirit power, higher power that's more than us, we cannot do it. So it's okay to go down on your knees, to go dig deeper and ask to be enabled to do what you are praying for, or what you're looking forward to, or what your goal is in terms of that you're going through.
And in addition to that, also asking for help. I remember when I went to Colorado, I had these ladies who I just told them about it, because we don't want to talk about it, but I insisted, I'm going to talk about it. And so they were praying for me as well.
Yes.
So just knowing that there's someone else praying for you, because there are times when you're not able to pray. There are times when you're in so much pain, you can't even get on your knees. You're like, you don't even have anything to say to God, because you're feeling so alone and so depressed about the whole thing. So asking other people to help you with that is also very important. So you have to seek help. You have to seek a community, even if it's not you don't belong to a church. Seek for the right community, people who are going to help you through this. Just know that you're not alone.
I like that, even if you're not part of the church, because here we just don't talk to church people. And that's sometimes the misconception. Because I don't have a church, because I don't have this organization religious, I'm out of the picture. You guys are talking about praying, and no, I'm not today. I miss you, Apple. There's always help for every single person. We are all made by one higher power, who is God. But even if you don't have a church, even if you don't even believe, there is still help for you too. There's help for everyone. Listen, this has been great.
Thank you.
Yes.
I love it.
Oh, me too. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of the heart of my viewer here. We appreciate you. You're so intelligent, so eloquent. That was beautiful. You did good.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome. Guys, how did you like that? Please comment. Let Dorcas know. And at this time, please tell us your contact so that we can be able to reach out to you for the book. And so if you want to be reached out with a phone number, email, your social handles, it's the time to do that.
I think we can share that in the description, but I can tell you my phone number. My phone number is 253-237-3758. That's my phone number, 253-237-3758. And if you want to reach me by email, you can reach me on newstarttohealth16 newstarttohealth16@gmail.com. And if it's on Facebook, you'll find my name is Dorcas Wanganga. Just look for my name over there, and you can leave me a message if you want to reach me that way. And the book is on Amazon. It's been on Amazon since 2021, I think, 2022. And so we're going to share the link as well for the book, and it's in all three. It's on Kindle, it's on Audible if you want to listen, and you can also get a hard copy or even a hardcover. So we have it
And signed.
in all formats.
And
yes.
she can sign it for you, right?
Yeah, I can sign it for you if you want it. If you want to get it from me, I can sign it for you. I have books that I
Yes.
got
Yes.
from Amazon that I can definitely sign and send if you want.
There you go. Because soon and very soon also, we are hoping to have a book event.
Launch. Yeah.
Book launch, book event, something. You know, I'm the other pusher behind there for her. You know, we push each other.
Yeah. I know, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right.
It's been great. Thank you.